Alrighty, hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Trundle Domination and I'm back with another episode of my League Explained series. This time I'm going to take kind of a step back from the explained videos I've been doing and actually start with a beginner's guide for League of Legends, since I noticed that the ones that are out there aren't very in-depth and kind of make a lot of assumptions about your given knowledge. So I want to start from square one with a new guide series I'm going to call within the Explained series, but it's going to be a series in of itself. It's going to be called The Only League of Legends Guide That Teaches from Step 1. I'm also calling a little subtitle, Fixing the Problem with Every League of Legends Beginner's Guide. So, with our introduction, we are going to be covering several concepts in this video just for today. We're going to talk about what is a MOBA, which is the type of game that League of Legends is. And we're going to talk about more specifically what is League of Legends. And getting into the actual elements of the game, we're going to talk about what minions are, what towers, inhibitors, and nexuses are, how do we actually win a match, or how do we win the game, and what is gold, which I would argue is the most important element of League of Legends in general. So, jumping right into it, we're getting an introduction generally to what MOBAs are. So MOBA is an acronym that stands for Multiplayer Online Battle Arena. Normally, what this means is that it's a multiplayer game because it's a team game, so you'd have teams of players versing against each other in a battle arena where they fight in player versus player combat, often assisted with AI units, such as minions, which we'll talk about later. MOBAs all converge from a StarCraft mod that was made by a high schooler in the early 2000s. If you don't know what StarCraft is, it's basically a real-time strategy game that kind of had the same arena feel, but was mostly solo play. So it kind of became a team game as it got developed into the MOBA genre. If you want to know more about the history of MOBAs and League in general, besides just what I'm going to tell you in this video, there's a great video by a YouTuber called GBay99 who does a lot of really good League of Legends and game design history videos, so I'd highly recommend his content. Besides that, community development shaped the game and defined the genre in general. So after this mod was made, it was put in kind of the community reach, so everyone was able to kind of edit it and get their own spin on it and make their own mods off of it, which created just a bunch of community development that allowed the game to really shine and be defined by its own player base. A little after this mod and all of this game development kind of happened, Riot Games was founded and they ended up releasing a new title, which was League of Legends, which basically dominated the MOBA scene even until today. So it was a pretty big hit after its first couple seasons, and it's been growing ever since. Alright, so still with the introduction to MOBAs, I said a little bit about this earlier, but MOBAs are played by teams of players fighting along each other with AI-controlled units on a battlefield. The controls differ between some games, like sometimes you'll have different abilities and different keys, but the premise stays the same, with teams fighting against each other for a common goal. Generally, the goal is to overrun the enemy team's base by killing players and units to gain artificial leads based on the in-game currency of gold. Or, I mean, the currency also differs, just depends on what MOBA you're talking about. But that's kind of the general premise, is to overrun the enemy's base by getting leads in-game, by killing them or completing AI challenges, which I'll talk more about later as well. Alright, what are the playstyles for MOBA? So MOBAs generally have three major playstyles that I've seen. I'm sure there's more niche ones, but generally it's like more aggressive player-on-player combat. So it's like you want to go for kills, you want to make stylish plays, you want to have good mechanics. The second kind is kind of more passive gold generation through completing the AI challenges we'll talk about later. And the last one's kind of synergistic with other teammates. So that playstyle generally centers around maybe passive at the beginning through those challenges to gain a gold lead, and then later you'd work with your team more rather than trying to make plays with by yourself. Alright, now let's move into a general introduction of League of Legends. So as a MOBA identity, League shaped the MOBA genre greatly. It added a bunch of new unique mechanic systems, such as a recall, which I'll talk about later as well. Basically a free teleport back to base, which was very controversial at the time. It also added intricate rune and item systems, which allowed the players to customize their own playstyle. It also added lots of fun aspects. In GBay99's interview with the founder, one of the founders and developers, Ginsu, he talked about some of these aspects where they added like things where it was like kill announcements or killing sprees, and that just made the game a lot more fun because it kind of got you motivated to keep doing well after you were doing well. Alright, on to some general game information. So the map that is normally played on in the traditional 5v5 mode is called Summoner's Rift. That's the normal map. There are other maps for the other game modes, but the main one I'm going to be talking about is Summoner's Rift, because that's the map that I play the most often. On the map, there are 22 turrets in total. This is 22 turrets, 6 inhibitors, and 2 nexuses on the map. There are 3 lanes. The one on the topmost is called top, the one in the middle is called middle, and the one on the bottom is called bot. Or bottom. These are often abbreviated to top, mid, and bot. Those are some just common things. If you hear them while you're playing, that's what it means. In between the lanes, there's the jungle, which is often abbreviated as just JG, which is just normally means jungle for anyone that you're talking about. The jungle it spans everything that's not in the lane. So if it's not in the lane, it is the jungle. And that's me important. We'll talk about that later. There's also the AI minions that spawn every so often. Yeah. So now let's talk a little more about those minions. So the minions are also called creeps. Most of the time that's more of like a regional difference, like some regions will call it different things, but the official title is minions. If they're called creeps, don't get confused, those are the exact same thing. They always come in waves of 6 or 7. The standard wave, which is the 6, so the 7 is kind of more rare, but the standard wave, which is 6 minions, consists of 3 melee minions and 3 caster minions. So the melee minions have more health, so they're harder to kill, but they generally do less damage, and obviously since they are melee, they don't have range to attack from. So they're a little, I don't know what the right word is, they can be killed a lot easier. The caster minions, they do more damage, but they have less health, so it's an easy trade-off there. And the caster minions are ranged, so they're able to attack from farther away. There are generally 6 minions in each wave, as I said, with 7 minions every third wave, which eventually increases to every second wave, then every wave as the game progresses. So generally, with the 7 minion wave, there will be a standard 6 minions, so the normal 3 of melee and caster, but with the 7th minion will also be a siege minion, which is also called a cannon minion. These are used for they're used to push out the wave a lot easier because they have lots of health and do lots of damage. So they're just very powerful, and they allow whatever champion's ahead to kind of use that to their advantage because they deal a lot more damage. Cool. So the minion AI is a little bit funky. They will generally prioritize the nearest enemy unit, whether that's a champion, enemy minion, or turret, unless you attack an enemy champion while there are enemy minions nearby, then they'll start to attack you. So if you hit an enemy champion while there's enemy minions also near you, they will switch and start attacking you instead. Minions will not attack towers, it's important to note, unless there's no other enemy minions nearby or enemy champions in front of the turret. The one exception to this is if they're already hitting the tower, then sometimes they will not switch off to go start attacking the minions. It just really depends. The minion AI is a little bit weird. That's something you kind of have to just play with when you're in game and see kind of how it works for yourself. But the most important thing is they will hit you if you hit an enemy when the minions are near you. Alright, let's talk about turrets. So I mentioned there were 22 turrets. They're generally, in general, it makes sense. Like if you think about it as like a watchtower, that's what they're also called towers. Turrets are generally things that do lots of damage from far away, and you can kind of think that's a really similar concept in League of Legends. So the turrets fire powerful damaging attacks against any enemy unit within its range. The priority is as follows. It starts with enemy cannon minions, then it starts with the closest minion. So the enemy cannon minions are always prioritized first. The turret will not attack champions unless there are no other minions nearby or an enemy champion attacks an allied champion within the turret's range. So if you're under tower and you hit an enemy, the turret will start targeting you and it will deal lots of damage and probably kill you if you're not very careful. So you have to be very careful with the tower aggro is what they call it, for like when it's switching between targets. So if you get tower aggro, that just means that the tower is hitting you. That's another commonly used form of language around turrets. And turrets are also called towers. Those are interchangeable. A little more about turrets. There are 11 turrets per team. There's 3 in each of the 3 lanes. So there's 3 in top, 3 in mid, 3 in bot. They're spread pretty evenly between the middle of the map and the allied base is where the 3 turrets are spread. And there's 2 additional turrets guarding the allied nexus. So that's the most protected, so it's harder to end the game, essentially. Turrets can be killed by champion auto attacks and certain abilities. Not every ability works on turrets. Most abilities actually don't work on turrets, but there are a decent amount that do. Once destroyed, the turret will no longer fire their powerful attacks. So that's the important part. If you take down an enemy tower, it stops firing and allows you to get closer to their base. So that's kind of how the game progresses. One really big advantage, towers grant lots of gold if you are able to kill them, or if they die while you're nearby, you can also get gold. That's a little bit funky too. Maybe I'll explain that a little further in the next video. But one very, very important thing about turrets is they can never respawn. So once your tower's gone or you kill an enemy turret, it's never respawning. It's always going to be dead. There's never going to be a turret there again until you obviously go into a new match. Okay, let's talk a little bit about inhibitors. So I mentioned that there was a turret guarding an inhibitor once you get into the base. So the inhibitors, there's 3 of them. They lie at the entrance to the base for each of the 3 lanes. So there's one top, mid, and bot inhibitor going into each base. They're protected by 1 turret, but they cannot attack or defend themselves otherwise. So it's up to the allied champions to protect the inhibitor if the tower is destroyed. Once the inhibitor itself is destroyed, it gives the team that destroyed it a minion buff that turns our normal siege or cannon minions into a super minion with heavily increased stats. Those are even harder to kill and have actually been known to kill champions by themselves if there's a couple of them. So they're very powerful, and it makes getting into the enemy base a lot easier because they'll basically clear enemy minion waves without much difficulty at all. A little more about inhibitors. Inhibitors can respawn after a set duration. So after an enemy kills your inhibitor, it will respawn after a certain time, so there's still hope. That is good. It can be destroyed again after respawning, which is also important to note. So enemies can keep taking inhibitors if they keep respawning. Generally, they will not be taken early in the game because they have 3 turrets in front of them in each lane respectively. So they're not like an early game thing. So you're not going to get like cannon minions rushing in your base at like 10 minutes or anything, unless one of your laners is doing very, very bad. But that's pretty unlikely. Alright, so now we're going to talk a little bit about how to win. So before we talk about that, let's talk about the Nexus. So they lie at the back of each base next to the spawn locations of either team. Each team only has 1 Nexus, and once it's destroyed, the team that destroyed it wins the match. So the teams whose Nexus dies, they lose. And that's basically the win condition of the match. The only other way to win is if the enemy team surrenders with a 4 out of 5 vote, but that's only accessible after 15 minutes of a match has been played. So yeah, that's important to know. Those are the only 2 ways to actually win a game, is to kill the enemy Nexus or to have them surrender. Alright, now let's talk a little bit about gold. This is kind of our final concept for this video specifically. I said that gold is the end-all be-all of League of Legends. So what I mean by that is that gold allows you to win games because it allows you access to better items and therefore better stats, which are basically what makes you win the game. So I'm going to talk a little more about that in our next item in Rune Guides, a little further down the road. But generally, you just have to know that gold is a very crucial variable that wins games pretty much by itself, is my first point here. So if you have a gold advantage, it's really likely that you're going to be able to do well, and you're able to kill your enemies, and you're able to win the game. That's why gold is often used as a metric to determine the likelihood of victory for either team. So if a team has a certain amount of gold advantage, if they have a certain amount of gold more than their opponents, then there's a certain likelihood that they're going to win. But of course, that's up to the players' skill and the champions they're playing and how they interact with each other. So it's not obviously not a certain thing, but gold definitely has a huge influence on the outcome of matches. So gold is gained by each player, and they can spend it on items, as I said. So each player gains their own gold. That's important to know. It's not shared between allies or anything. And yeah, they can spend it on items, which we'll get into a little, maybe one of the next later videos. So gold is gained in many different ways. It's gained passively, so you just get like a certain amount of gold per second that's added to your bank after 1 minute and 50 seconds in the game. You also get gold from last hitting enemy minions, so that means you get the last attack on them. If you get the killing blow on an enemy minion, it will give you extra gold. You also get it from killing turrets, as I mentioned earlier, as well as inhibs or even the Nexus, which feels a little bit weird because you already win the game, but you still get more gold. But either way. You also get it from killing jungle monsters, including the Dragon and Baron, which are the boss monsters of the map, and I'll talk more about those in their own videos. You also get gold from killing enemy champions, and some runes and items can also give you gold as a form of investment, basically. So those are all the ways to get gold. And with that, that's actually where I want to end off the video for today. So that's kind of just a general overview of what League of Legends is, what elements are on the map, and how we can kind of learn about them, and what we should know when we're first starting to learn about the game and how to win. So actually I'm going to add on another section of this video, so I'll see you in that one in a second, where I kind of go into just a practice tool and just show you what all of these look like, so we're prepared to know what we're getting into before we just hop into a match of League. So I'll see you then. Alrighty, welcome to the kind of explanation section here. I'm going to lock my camera on myself real quick so I'm able to show you guys. So this is just the first of our series for demo videos, kind of explaining what League is and how we can get into it. So I want to show you what each part of the map is. So when we first get into a game of League, we're going to spawn in this little area. They call this the fountain. So the fountain, if an enemy walks into your fountain, they will die pretty much instantly. It does thousands of damage per second. So it's like an ultimate safeguard. If you're in the base, it's almost impossible for you to be killed. If we'll recognize the terms from the slideshow a second ago, this is the Nexus. So if the enemies are able to kill this, they win the game. These are what towers look like. So here are the two guarding the Nexus, as we see. And each of the 3 lanes here, we have inhibitor number 1, 2, and 3. And they each have a tower protecting them, as we talked about in the slideshow. So this is top lane. It's on the topmost part of the map. It's kind of on the left side of your mini-map here, but the goal is like the lanes on the top part of the map in general. So that's why they call it top lane. Mid lane goes right through the middle here, and bot lane goes all the way down. It basically mirrors top lane, but it's towards the bottom of the map, so it works out like that. I wanted to show you, I'm going to go ahead and use a teleport command over here so I can show you guys. This is in practice tool, you won't be able to do this in real game, but I want to kind of show you how this works. So if I'm looking at a minion here, if I click on the minion by right-clicking on it, and I get the killing blow, then it gives me gold, just as we saw. And you can see that my gold is stacking up in my item shop right here. And this is how enemy champions will appear to you. Enemies will have a red health bar, including the enemy minions. And if I right click on Nasus, this bot, I can attack him and it'll do some damage to his health bar. But just as I told you in the guide, if I attack Nasus with an auto attack, the enemy minions start attacking me instead of my minions. So that's super important. You can see these here are the melee minions that are in front. Behind them are the caster minions, and the third wave is coming in right now, so you'll see these are the cannon minions right here. Those are the ones that are big and beefy, they do a lot of damage, and they're pretty hard to kill. They also give the most gold, that's important to note. So you can see my health bar is getting a little low here. This bar right here is your health. If that reaches 0, then you will die. So I'm going to show you that what it looks like actually real quick. I'm going to let him kill me right here. So if you die, your screen goes gray, just like this, and you can see your death timer in the corner or down here. So after that death timer's up, I'll respawn, and I'm able to play the game once again. So you can move around just by clicking generally. Mostly what I wanted to show you was just the concepts that I was talking about in my slideshow today. So I'm going to go ahead and, where's that teleport command? There we go. I'm going to teleport back down here with Nasus. And you saw that when I died to him, it gave me like a little announcement. So I'm going to do it real quick just again so we can see. All the minions are hitting me, by the way, as you can see. So they ignore the tower, they ignore the enemy minions, they just start hitting me. So you can see it says ace. That's when you kill all the members of an enemy team, but since it's just me, it says ace. But those announcements and the voice you hear are going to happen all the time whenever you get a kill. So that's kind of just a foundation of League. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and teleport myself. So this is where I'm in the enemy base, and you can see the radius for towers. So if I step inside this radius, it'll start hitting me. But if I go inside the radius, let's say, if I push out this wave up in top lane here, I'm going to go and level up my Q real quick so that I can use that to help me. But if I walk into the radius with minions, it'll hit my minions first. But if all my minions die, as you'll see in a second, once this cannon minion dies here, my cannon minion, you can see that one also gives me more gold, but then it'll start hitting me until I leave the tower range. So that's kind of how tower aggro works. Let's see if I can... And I probably won't be able to shove him out the tower because he's very far ahead now. Even though he's a bot, I just don't have any items, so that's really the tough part. But, yeah, so that's kind of how this works. This is the jungle area that I was talking about. So if you're wondering about the jungle monsters that also give you gold, they are going to look something like this. There's one camp here. I'll teleport over here. There's one camp right here. And as you move up the map, there's more camps. There's one right there, there, and there. You can't see them until you have vision of them. That's another big aspect of League. But yeah, so these are all where the stuff kind of is. So you see you have a mini map here whenever you play. So you can see the outline of all the towers and inhibs and everything. So yeah, that's kind of just a basic overview of what League looks like and what's on the map that we can actually interact with when we play the game like this. You can see there's more jungle monsters. I think the jungle monsters are really cute. I think they're a good addition to the game. But if you can see, I can start attacking this as well. And real quick, if I'm able to kill this, I'm going to go ahead and use my abilities. I'm using my mouse for everything because I'm not able to use my keyboard right now. But if I kill this, you can see that one also gives me gold. So you can get gold from many different sources in the match. So yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching. Have a great day, and let me know if you want me to keep doing this kind of beginner series. I figured it'd be a good addition to kind of the YouTube content because most of the beginner guides I see are for players that are new, but they've already played a lot of matches. So I figured I'd start kind of from square one. So people that don't know anything about League or anything about MOBAs and how they can actually get into the game and join. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more, and have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you.